Tyler, let's start with Jerod Mayo because it's been a tough week for him with fans and media alike having started to question if he should be the man for the job moving forward after this year. What can the team do this week to answer some of those questions?
Yeah, I think it's twofold, right? Because it has been kind of a double-layered thing for Jerod Mayo. One, the play on the field hasn't been great. And then when you get out of the game, you go to the press conference, you go to the booth, it hasn't been great for Jerod Mayo in front of the podium either. So you kind of have to go at it with two fronts. For me, on the field, I think they need to be much better against the run. It's been an issue for them pretty much the entire season, but really as of late. And you look at last week's game, well over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think they averaged five yards per carry allowed. James Conner really just ran all over them. They're going up against the Buffalo rushing attack. Obviously, Josh Allen's a beast of his own, but James Cook has really been coming on as of late. 2 100-yard games coming out of their bye. So to me, if they can solidify the defense, and that's where Jerod Mayo should be able to shine because he comes from that side of the ball, a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker in his own right during his playing career. Flex a little bit in that regard. That's your strength. Try to flex as much as you can on defense against a very high-powered Buffalo Bills offense, and then just show some stability at the press conference. That's really the big thing. Don't set yourself up for a situation where you say something on Sunday and then Monday morning you're trying to retract it like he's been doing a couple times, including this past week with Alex Van Pelt. So it's really just kind of looking for more stability across a couple of areas.
Yeah, and that comment at the end of the game yesterday where it seemed like he may have thrown Alex Van Pelt under the bus a little bit, that obviously didn't help after having lost the game and the team not looking so good coming off the bye week when they played against the Cardinals. But, you have him, and that's a big question, I think, for the final 3 games is what can Jerod Mayo get out of this group? Drake Maye, obviously he's had a good rookie season, Tyler, but he's got 3 more games left, and we hope to continue to see his development here for the rest of the year. What are you hoping to see out of him for these final 3 games?
Yeah, just a continued ascent, because this is one of the bright spots that the Patriots have. And it is kind of crazy. I mean, I remember talking back in the summertime, we're talking about what the expectations should be for the New England Patriots in 2024. And I remember telling you, like, if we know coming out of 2024 that Drake Maye is the guy, then it's a successful season. And so I think sometimes we do have to look back at that and know where this organization is in its rebuild. And they got the hardest thing right. They have the quarterback. They have the person that is the most difficult to find already in place going forward. So yes, there's questions about Jerod Mayo, the offensive line, the wide receivers, a bunch of different things on the roster. But they do have Drake Maye. Now, in terms of things to get a little bit more better at and finally tune is the turnovers. And, of course, last week's interception was not on him. Kayshon Boutte basically handed it off to the Arizona Cardinals. But he has thrown some interceptions here and there this season. So being a little bit more efficient with the football is one thing that I want to see him kind of flex a little bit more down the final 3 weeks.
And I want to hit on another one of the young guys here in one moment because there are some bright spots with this team, as bleak as things have been overall this year. But, Tyler, the Patriots dealt some tough news because they place Christian Barmore back on the reserve non-football illness list due to recurring symptoms of blood clots. Of course, he was diagnosed with the condition at the start of training camp in July, and then he missed the first 10 games of the year. So how does this affect the team's long-term plans with him now being out again?
Yeah, it's a really unfortunate situation, right? I mean, this is a player that is supposed to be a building block player for your rebuild, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. He just signed a $92 million contract extension with the Patriots this offseason. And just to put that into bigger context, it's the richest contract the Patriots have signed a player that's not Tom Brady. So, like, you could see where the Patriots held him in such high regard, and to see him kind of deal with this health-related issue, it's concerning. And so, first and foremost, you just have to make sure Christian Barmore, the person, is ready to go in his life and not deal with this going forward. And then beyond that, you have to address the on-field situation. Do you now go to this offseason? Does that change your calculus a little bit as you look towards free agency, as you look towards the draft? Do you have to bring in some more depth at that position where at one point you might have thought that you didn't need to address that? You were more able to focus on wide receivers, offensive line. Now, do you have to maybe think about a day 2, day 3 pick along the defensive line because you don't know what the future is going to be for Christian Barmore? They'll learn more as the weeks and months go forward, but certainly it does alter the plans in terms of roster construction going forward.
Yeah, and you hit it perfectly there. As much as the Patriots want him to be right so he can play, him as a person, that's first and foremost concern. And we're wishing the best, obviously, for Christian Barmore. I did want to give a little bit of credit to a player on the defensive side of things before we hit on the Bills here in a moment. Tyler, Christian Gonzalez, I mean, he's had an all-pro type year for the Patriots, and opposing quarterbacks have completed just 39% of passing attempts with Gonzalez in coverage, which is pretty remarkable considering he's going up against every team's opposing number one. Where does he rank in your mind among the top corners in the NFL?
Yeah, you talk about the top wide receivers. Last week was just a phenomenal play, ripping a touchdown away from Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's been an unbelievable season for Christian Barmore. I firmly put him in the top 10 in cornerbacks in the NFL. He could arguably be top 5, depending on your preference. I think Pro Football Focus has him as a coverage grade at 11 overall in terms of cornerbacks. But a lot of that is in man coverage. So, those Pro Football Focus grades, they kind of are skewed a little bit. He's played a lot of man coverage, as you've noted, going up against some of the top wide receivers in the NFL, and he's passed with flying colors. So certainly a top 10 cornerback in the NFL, if not top 5, no doubt. And that's, again, another one of those encouraging things. It's not been a great season for the New England Patriots, but when you try to look for the structure of what this team is going to be, what their identity is going to be, you do have to get certain positions right. As I mentioned, quarterback's one of them, cornerback's another one, edge rusher, left tackle. You got 2 of the 4 right are the ones I just mentioned. So if you're able to have Christian Barmore for the long term to be your shutdown corner, you have Drake Maye, there's a lot of attractive pieces for the New England Patriots as they start this rebuild.
Yeah, Christian Gonzalez has just been so good for this team this year. And you're right, they hit on Drake Maye, or at least it seems like they have so far. So you get 2 pretty important positions that you've at least hit on in the draft. All right, let's go to the Bills side now. Josh Allen has just been incredible for Buffalo this year. He's always been a great player, but now I think he's firmly in the MVP conversation. And in my mind, Tyler, I think he's probably at the top spot. But for you, where does he rank right now?
Yeah, I think he's the betting favorite to win NFL MVP, and for good reason. I mean, he is just playing otherworldly right now. He's got over his last 3 games, he's got 13 total touchdowns, no turnovers. He's just been an absolute freak, something that you would see out of Madden. It's not necessarily normal quarterback numbers because he's doing it throwing the football. He's doing it rushing the football. You saw that game a couple of weeks ago against the Los Angeles Chargers, 6 total touchdowns. He's even catching touchdowns at certain points. He is just playing out of his mind. And he's doing it, again, in a season where they just lost Stephon Diggs. They traded him away. He lost his number 1 wide receiver. He's doing it with virtual unknowns. Now, there's a lot of promising players in that Buffalo offense, but there's not that calling card like Stephon Diggs was in years past for this team. So for him to be able to elevate his game without a true number 1 and continue to have the Buffalo Bills in contention for the number 1 seed, of course, already won the AFC East. It's remarkable. I think that he's the best quarterback in the league right now, and he is a well-deserving MVP.
Yeah, the Bills have won the AFC East now 5 consecutive years. And it's interesting to think about the Bills in the context of the AFC, Tyler, because as good as Josh Allen has been, and despite him being the MVP favorite right now in many people's minds, you still have the Chiefs. They have the number 1 seed right now, and if Mahomes is healthy, they can likely close that out and take the number 1 seed. You have the Ravens lurking in the background as well, and then a lot of other pretty good teams in the AFC. So where do the Bills rank in your mind within the context of the conference?
Yeah, they're certainly in tier 1 if we're doing it in tiers. The question is, are they better than Kansas City? They beat them earlier in the year. They might not have the number 1 seed, but they were able to take down the Kansas City Chiefs. I like them a little bit better against Baltimore. So I would put them as the team to beat currently in the AFC. And now that doesn't mean that there aren't concerns with this roster. I think their defense can get a little bit exposed at times, particularly in the secondary. So there's some concerns, especially if we do get into a situation where they're going up against Lamar Jackson, who just threw 5 touchdowns last week. If they're going up against a healthy Patrick Mahomes and they start to get hot with Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins, and they're going to get Hollywood Brown back as a wide receiver to add to that offense, if all of a sudden you're getting into these shootouts, I do think that you'll have to hope that all of a sudden Josh Allen can go for 6 touchdowns in a game, because you go back to that game against the Los Angeles Rams where he did score 6 touchdowns. He needed to do that in order for the Buffalo Bills to go over the Los Angeles Rams, who were throwing it all over the field. Of course, they have a ton of great wide receiver talent, and Matthew Stafford's no joke at the quarterback position, but you're going to be facing that level of competition in the postseason in the AFC. So a little bit of concerns there, but you can say that with pretty much every team in the AFC. You can kind of nitpick them as we go down the list.
Yeah, it seems so wide open, the route to the Super Bowl and the teams that could ultimately be in it and win it. There's a handful, but at the same time, the Bills are one of them, and we'll see if they can take care of the Patriots, or if the Patriots can play spoiler in this one. That would certainly be quite a story in Buffalo if they can ultimately pull that off. But Tyler Sullivan, thank you so much for the time. As always, you can catch his writing on CBSSports.com. And we have you covered this Sunday. Patriots game day is at 11:30 on WBZ and streaming on CBS News Boston. Pats and Bills kick off at 4:25 on WBZ, followed by the fifth quarter postgame show on TV 38.